I'm Cathal Summers.
And I'm Deidre Lane.
Your Teagasc Sustainability Advisors. And you're welcome to the Teagasc Environment Edge podcast number 41, bringing you the latest information, science and opinion to improve farm sustainability.
As we are in the middle of Signpost Sustainability Week 2022, it's important for farmers to hear how our signpost farmers are working with advisors on the programme and implementing new technologies.
Today we're going to chat to Trevor Boland, who is a signpost farmer in Sligo, and his Future Beef Programme Advisor, Gabriel Trayers, about the steps Trevor is taking to reduce his greenhouse gas emissions and improve sustainability on the farm.
Trevor and Gabriel, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Trevor, can you tell me a little bit about your background and your involvement in the Signpost programme?
Yeah, so I'm a suckler and beef farmer here in Sligo. In West Sligo, I'm farming about 50 suckler cows, and I also buy in some Angus and Hereford type heifers to finish off grass at about 20 months of age. The bulls from the suckler herd are sold to a beef finisher at about a year old, and the heifers I either bring to finish myself or they're kept for breeding on my own farm. An odd heifer is sold for breeding on other farms. In terms of the future farm program, I've been following the previous version, the Better Farm program, for a good number of years, and I liked what was involved in terms of the actions and goals that were set on farms and the measuring that was done on farms, and targets that was put in on farms to improve the overall profitability of farms. And I suppose, coming from an accountancy background, which is your farm job, I like that, seeing an improvement in the performance and particularly the profitability and financial performance of farms. And I believe it's very important farmers are benchmarking their own farm against other similar type systems or farms in their own region, and just to get an idea of where they're going with their farm and that they are improving the financial performance of their farm year on year.
So some of the efficiencies and the vision of the programme are going to help you, to reduce the amount of work you have to do.
Well, yes. So even in terms of some of the environmental actions that we're hearing more and more about now, like your protected urea, your clover, like, while sometimes they might seem like a cost, actually, once you implement these actions, they will improve the financial performance of the farm. They'll actually reduce cost and improve performance of animals, which lead to a better overall profitability on the farm overall.
And what's the availability like of protected urea up the west? I'm from Roscommon myself, and I know some farmers have indicated, my brother and other people have indicated, it's difficult to get it at certain times of the year.
That's definitely an issue. At times, you send a contractor to the store, you tell them you want to put out protected urea, and you get the phone call to say that it's not available, and it'll be a number of weeks before it's going to be available. So I suppose that's not really helping what we want to do, in terms of we always want to put out the protected urea, but if it's not available at the time you want to put it out, then you're just going to have to go with another product. And so we definitely need to see an improvement there in the availability of supply, particularly of protected urea around the west and northwest.
Trevor, before we dig into, I suppose, the mitigation or the actions you're carrying out the programme, you just mentioned there are you working a full-time job as well as farming, you are?
Yeah, I'm working full-time, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Can be a bit longer than that at times, particularly this time of year. But so farming is in the mornings before I go to work, in the evenings, and then Saturdays, and a couple hours on a Sunday morning. I suppose when people ask me, how do you manage to fit it all in? It's very much having a simple system, not changing system year to year. It's a system it's an autumn calving herd. I use mainly AI, so I try to calve all the cows from August through to September, and as little as possible in October. I've finished by the 31st of October. I start my breeding on the 15th of October. So the idea is a nice compact calving, getting a live calf on the ground. All the cows calve outside, and then you have an even batch of animals during the year. As I say, the bulls are brought to about a year old, so June, July, I sell the bulls, and the heifers, then I can winter the heifers myself. But it's about having a simple system to suit your farm, and autumn calving suits me and the type of stock I want to produce, and the system that I feel I've been doing the last number of years and improving on every year.
We couldn't have picked the worst time then to bring you in for a chat in the podcast, the height of your calving season.
Not too bad, not too bad. It's settled off now at this stage where the first weeks of August is when I'm really busy. Well, when I say really busy, to be honest, I'm working and the cows are calving away at home on their own. Now somebody will look in on them during the day. I'm not too far away from home anyways. I'm 15 minutes from home, so I can pop home if there is a problem with a cow. But generally, the cows will all calve themselves outside, and the calf gets up and sucks. And to me, it's a good system.
That's the way you want it. Tell me this, you're part of the Signpost program, and look, as part of the program, we're trying to achieve reduced gaseous emissions, better water quality, improved biodiversity. What steps have you taken on the farm yourself since you're in the program, or even before you got into it?
Well, I suppose one of the systems I was always practicing there was having a good grassland management on the farm in terms of paddocks, number of stock I have on the farm, limited number of stock. I'm grass measuring on a weekly basis for a good number of years now. And I suppose something simple that I've put in over the last number of years is I've fenced off water course that's running through the farm and put in a solar power pump system that pumps water out of the river up to the water troughs, which allows me to divide up the farm better and make better use of grass on that particular block.
Any grants on that, actually, Trevor, on the solar pump? Or did you have to out of your pocket, was it?
Yeah, at the time it was. Now, I believe there may be grants coming for it, but at the time I bought it, there was no grant. Yeah, and I suppose it's coming down the line where there will be eventually, we won't be allowed cattle in cross rivers or have a drinking point, particularly on rivers. So I saw that that's coming down the line, and I tried to get ahead of that and get the water pump in. And a lot of people actually ask me about it, and because they can see it, and I tell them I'm really happy with it. It's putting a good flow of water out to the water troughs, and as I say, you can divide up your farm and manage it better from a grass point of view.
And I suppose there's a big push now on trying to reduce nitrogen, and we're trying to reduce the likes of nitrous oxide losses. I presume your land can be heavy enough there at times, so it could be prone to that kind of emissions. But how are you getting on with clover establishment, and what's your, I suppose, experience of clover?
I suppose in terms of West of Ireland land, I wouldn't be too bad. Now, it's a bit like everyone, we've soft spots and heavy ground, but generally it would be, I suppose, considered fairly good ground. Clover, yeah, so I'm into my second year of putting in clover. I'm noticing a lot more clover in the farm, but maybe I'm looking for it a bit more. But there is more clover on the farm. In particular, last year, 2021, the amount of fertilizer I put out on the block where I did a good bit of clover, the amount of artificial fertilizer I put out was minimal, and I was running, a high stocking rate on that block of ground. And so I'm assuming it was the clover that was pushing the grass on. And even late into the year, I was able to keep stock out in it because there was grass still growing later into the year on that block of ground.
How did you establish, Trevor, or how did you sow it?
So just oversown. It's part of a bit of work I'm doing there with Teagasc, and I know you're down in Wexford or Cathal, and as I pointed out one time, Johnstown Castle in Wexford is nearer to Cardiff than it is to Sligo. So I'm doing the trial up here for the people of the west and the northwest. It's very simple. It's an oversow system. So you graze out the paddock as tight as possible, and you go in after the cattle are gone out of it, and you oversow your clover with a fairly simple machine. I'm not too mechanically minded, so it's a machine goes in the back of the tractor and throws out the little clover seed. And that's basically it. And you let the clover establish there. So you try to get it as tight as possible, the grass grazed down as tight as possible, and oversow your clover after that.
So Gabriel, Trevor's been very successful, extremely successful in winning farming awards in the recent past. So he's won the Stuckler section of the Grassland Farmer of the Year in 2019 and the Smart Farming Prize. I think he made a promise that some of his winnings that go towards, say, soil sampling and correcting his pH and nutrient management planning. So has all of those been put in place on the farm?
Yeah, it has, and like every farmer that's in the Future Beef program, and there's 22 nationally, I think the first step is to take soil samples, and the NMP plan has done, and I suppose it has highlighted some areas of concern in ways for Trevor that the P's and K's are low, so they will have to be targeted. And I've talked to Trevor about this, and he's been trying to switching over from straight nitrogens over to kind of 18-6-12s and 10-10-20, and particularly you mentioned clover there. If more clover is going to be a success, it's awful important that we have the proper indices. So I think the big focus for Trevor going forward is to focus on his improving his soil fertility. Lime his pHs are quite good. I think he only needs 80 ton of lime over the course of the 5 years of the program. So maybe we'll be getting that lime out as early as possible to get the benefit from it. So N&P plan is a big part of it. Also, we will be developing farm plans for Trevor to see where he is now, where he wants to be in 5 years' time, and I think he's outlined that at the start. I suppose, in fairness to Trevor, he was on the technical path when it comes to farming. He has a lot of it achieved already, and I suppose it's just a matter of making small changes now to bring him to the next step.
Trevor, just come back. You mentioned, I suppose, your day job as an accountancy, and you love obviously figures and numbers. And farming, obviously, because you're working every hour God sends, I'd say, by the sounds of things at the moment. But how do you apply that I suppose your knowledge from your day job to your you mentioned metrics and measuring and grass and stuff. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I suppose a lot of what I would do, both in terms of farming and the job, would be spreadsheets, and so I'd be very much into recording what's going on in the farm day to day. So, for example, as mentioned there about my soil sample results, I would have all my soil sample results plugged into an Excel spreadsheet to see the trend and where I'm going. And while they're low and it's very hard to improve, particularly the P index, I feel it is going in the right direction. As Gabriel says there, my pH is good. So I'm monitoring that over the last 5-6 years to see how that's running. Another one I'd be recording a lot of would be weight gain. So I'd be regularly weighing the stock, including the cows, just to see and monitor the performance of the cows. So for an autumn calf and herd, you don't want the cows to lose too much condition over the winter period. So it's important to weigh them when they're going into the shed, and then weigh them maybe a month or 2 months later to see that they're not losing condition, to make sure to go back and calf for you. And then it's very important that your calves are gaining weight over the winter. So again, I would have maybe 10-12 years data recorded to see how my weanlings are performing year to year. If they have a good year, why was that a particularly good year? Was there something I did in terms of dosing or something? Or if they're not performing at the moment, like, I suppose the way to look at it is, it's too late the day you go out to the mart or the day you slaughter your animals to see that the performance has been poor. You need to be monitoring it all the way along. And if an animal isn't performing over a month or 2 month basis, there may be a disease issue there, or maybe just your grass isn't good enough under them. And I suppose even something like this year, I saw that the bulls weren't maybe performing as good as they should be. And once I put them onto some good quality aftergrass, they really took off. But you wouldn't necessarily notice that by just looking at them. So it's important that you weigh the animals, record the data, and analyze the data then that you're getting. So everything from the day the calf is born, I'm measuring the calf at birth, I'm weighing as many calves as possible, feeding all that information into ICBF, and then what I'm getting out of that then is good data back and reliability on my indices, the Eurostar replacement index, so that I know that if a cow is a 5-star cow, there's a reason for her being a 5-star cow. It's generally to do with she's going back in calf and she's doing a good job in her calf all the way through to slaughter.
And if I could jump in there, Carl, if you didn't mind, we'll say just on the grass measurement, like the target is to grow 10 ton of grass under the grass 10 program, we'll say, and Trevor's already achieved that for the year to date. So, and he's over 20 measures done. So as part of the program, Trevor has to record our grass measure on Pasture Base Ireland, and he's doing that on a weekly basis as well, which helps him make decisions about grassland management on the farm as well. So again, it's another metric that needs to be done for grassland management. Yeah.
He's reduced the amount of nitrogen he's using, and he's introduced clover, and he's still getting his 10 tons of grass. So that's a very good indicator of what is going on the farm, isn't it?
Very good indicator, and I think he can grow more if he gets in. If the indexes will improve, he'll be able to grow more. And it's all about management. He has a brilliant infrastructure in place. Graze out the paddocks in 3 days, grows them in 3 weeks. So he's hitting all those targets there when it comes to grassland management. And it's something you're interested in yourself, Cathal, too, isn't it? Really, It
is. Look, you're really both. You're after hitting a nail in the head there today, because I think we'd often talk to farmers about if you're growing clover, Trevor, you're growing clover, you want to reduce nitrogen, because there's no point putting nitrogen on nitrogen. But unless you're measuring grass, it's very hard for you to make the decision whether that reduction in nitrogen is affecting or not. So at least you can be proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's also helping your live weight gains as well, which is a is what you want. That's the outcome that, in the final outcome. So Gabriel, can you tell us a little bit about the option to move from 3-year-old calving to 2-year-old calving, and where Trevor is at with this at the moment?
Yeah, and it's probably another focus area we will have for Trevor and for all farmers in the group, in the program, I should say, that to try and get more heifers calved at 2 years of age. There's a bit of a myth, we'll say, among suckler farmers that this cannot be done. But we'll say in terms of profitability and reducing carbon footprint, it has massive implications. We'll say on a 40 cow herd, if you can calve all your replacement heifers at 2 years of age, you can increase your net profit by 4,500, while reducing your carbon footprint by 12%, which is almost half the requirement for Irish farmers at 25%. So it's a win-win for both, and I suppose it's all about educating farmers to try and drop more 2-year-old calving. And I suppose the reason why they don't that, there's a lot of myths out there that will say that if you calve at 2 years of age, the heifer won't be big enough to calve. She's going to have a lot of problem calving, and won't go back and calve, or won't reach a mature weight. And I suppose we have a series of workshops coming up now as part of the Future Beef program right across the country, where we'll be helping to dispel those myths and maybe educate farmers through these workshops on how to manage the heifer, so that those things won't happen, and that those heifers will grow into a mature cow, and will have longevity in the herd. And we'd have guys in the program there that all of the cows would have calved at 2 years of age, and they're in their 6, 7, 8 parities now at this stage. So again, I think it's a big win from the environment, and a big win from a profitability point of view on these farms. But it can be a hard sell, and these workshops will hopefully help to educate farmers that this is the way to go.
A bit of education and some behavioural change.
Exactly, and change is hard, but if as I said, if they can not these workshops, it'll be the farmer that is doing a good job on it, and it is working on their farms. It's kind of peer-to-peer learning. If they're going to tell the story, and if it works on a farm, he will listen better from another farmer, and hopefully get that story proper.
Gabriel, where can farmers hear about those workshops, or where can they get the information?
Yeah, the workshops, the first one is starting actually in October the 20th down in Kilgill's farm in Derry, County Offaly. We've actually one not far away in the west on the 28th of October with Michael Biggins's, but there's arranged them across the country, so they'll be all advertised on teagasc.ie. They'll be on the Teagasc Facebook page and Twitter as well.
Yeah, and I noticed that since COVID finished, there's real hunger for information, so definitely encourage people to go and attend as many of those as they can.
Absolutely, and we're trying to target farmers that haven't done it before. The farmers that are doing it will probably they're doing it, but like farmers that want to try it, want to be more profitable, those are the farmers that we want to try and get to those workshops.
Yeah. Trevor, just to finish up, Gabriel mentioned behavioural change and attitudes to change. Our second one, we know that's a difficult one, because none of us likes to change anything we're doing. We like to kind of continue the same route, because change means we have to actually study things and look into things a bit differently. But as part of the Signpost program, you've met a lot of farmers now involved in that program as well. What's it like to see the different attitudes or ideas within the farmers, or even beyond in your discussion groups or beyond? What's the attitudes like on the ground?
Well, I suppose that's one of the big benefits of being in the Future Beef Signpost program is you get to meet a range of farmers, maybe practicing different systems, but from a wider area than you might normally meet. So what I would pick up from it is, if I go to a farm and see them doing a good job on something like 2-year-old calving, or perhaps finishing bulls off a suckler farm, or just there'll be some tip that you can pick up on every farm that you can go to, and if you can bring 2 or 3 of them actions back to your own farm and improve your own setup year on year, that's what I'd be aiming to get out of it. Like the attitudes and the advice that we're getting, it's all positive, and it's all seeking to basically improve the profitability of suckler farmers. That farm in that region can then spread that word to other similar type farmers, and that you bring in your local discussion group onto that farm and see how these practices, as Gabriel says, are maybe discussing calving at 2-year-old, producing bull beef, grass measuring, use of protected urea, clover, soil sampling, silage sampling, dung sampling, all that sort of thing, that you can bring 2 or 3 of them items back to your own farm and improve your own farm year on year.
If you could give one piece of advice to farmers, the general farmer that's not in those type of programs.
I suppose my particular advice would be that generally as farmers, we need to improve our grassland management. So whether that's getting a few extra water troughs into a field, dividing up a field, making better use out of grass. And the reason I say that is particularly at the times we're in terms of high cost of fertilizer, high cost of meal, generally the high cost of everything, all inputs into farming, that we need to make as much use as possible out of grass, the cheapest feed available to our animals, which will improve the performance of the animals, improve the weight gain, and overall lead to a more profitable farm. And if we can do all that in a more environmentally sustainable way, all the better.
And if I could just comment on that Cathal question as well, I just encourage farmers to go. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of farm walks, a lot of discussion groups, maybe become a member of a discussion group. And changes that you make on your farm don't have to be massive. There could be just dividing a field with an electric reel and pigtails, or maybe changing some practice when it comes to managing suckler cows. You don't have to make massive changes, but small changes, when they cumulatively or add up together, can make a big improvement in your profitability and maybe even your workload. Like as Trevor said at the start, he's a full-time job, but he uses a lot of technology. Sense hubs will say he has a good calving camera. So all these aids make the work-life balance a bit better as well when it comes to off-farm work and farming.
Oh, that's super advice, Gabriel. Look, lads, we'll finish up there, and just look, Trevor, thanks a million for taking the time out today, because I know you're extremely busy, so really appreciate it. And Gabriel, same thing as well. Super advice today, and really enjoyed the chat today, and really appreciate you coming on. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much.
No problem, lads. Thanks, Deidre. Thanks, Cathal.
Thanks very much.
That's it for this episode of the Teagasc Environment Edge podcast. Thanks to Trevor Boland and his Future Beef Programme Advisor, Gabriel Trayers, for joining us on the show.
Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast. You can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. And for more information, go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. I'm Cathal Summers.
And I'm Deidre Glenn.
Join us next time for the Teagasc Environment Edge podcast, Signpost to Farm Sustainability.